Alright folks, it's story time. The story kicks off with our hero standing dramatically in the middle of a barren wasteland. Surrounding him are a bunch of guys with pickaxes. Our guy, well, raises his hand and channels his magic, which swirls around his arm before firing off in a blinding, overpowered beam that completely obliterates the boulders ahead. Congratulations, the land is now flat, but he's not doing this for fun. The king actually awarded him this land, and now he's out here building his own kingdom from scratch, designing towns, clearing fields, managing workers, while I'm over here sitting in my chair making anime recaps and working part-time at McDonald's. Man's out here founding nations, and I can barely find the motivation to make dinner. Anyway, enough with my ranting, let's continue. The miners cheer behind him and get back to work, hauling stones and shouting like they're part of a construction montage. Well, watches with a proud smile. Another boy walks up and praises his magic. Well chuckles, about ready to call it a day. But of course, his ever-demanding butler Roderick shows up politely asking for just a little more help, clearing more land. Cut to a few hours later, and Well looks absolutely done with life as he teleports back home. A group of cheerful girls welcome him with tea and teasing. He retreats to his room with a sigh, realizing that even after 10 years in this world, he still can't fully shake off his old life. Yep, 10 years ago, this guy was just your average overworked office drone named Shingo. One night, he was about to eat his sad solo dinner when he passed out mid-meal. Next thing he knows, he wakes up, staring at a completely different meal. Oh, and also, a completely different face. Turns out, he's now a kid in a world that looks straight out of an RPG. There's music, fancy food, and people in medieval outfits. Shingo, understandably confused, thinks he might have just woken up in another country, until he realizes everyone's speaking Japanese. That's when the existential crisis starts brewing. Before he can process any of this, an old man calls him over and tells him to introduce himself to a crowd of well-dressed strangers. Shingo freezes like a deer in headlights until an older boy steps in and saves him, introducing him as Wendelin von Benno Baumeister, or well, for short. Yep, definitely not Japan anymore, that's pure German aristocrat naming right there. Afterward, the older brother, Eric, kindly explains what's going on since Well's supposed to be 5 years old. Apparently, today's a big family event. Their eldest brother, Kurt, just got married to the daughter of Sir Mainbach. As the night goes on, everyone's drinking and celebrating while Well's just trying to stay calm and piece together what's happening. At least he can read and understand the language, so that's one thing less to panic about. Judging by the fancy wedding, he figures the family must be doing pretty well. And since he's the third son, he's probably free to just live easy, right? Yeah, about that. The next morning, he finds out the truth hits harder than Monday mornings. Breakfast is a sad combo of hard bread and watery soup, and the house looks like it's one termite away from collapsing. Turns out that lavish wedding feast was all an illusion. Eric explains that they splurge when guests visit, but are actually dirt poor. The walls were literally covered with curtains to hide the cracks. Then more brothers start showing up. Helmut, Paul, Herman, and Eric, and they casually drops that 2 others couldn't even make it to the wedding. That's when Well realizes the full horror. He's not just in a poor noble family, he's the 8th son. 8th, no land, no inheritance, just a lot of siblings and disappointment. Clearly, mom and dad were a little too enthusiastic in their family planning. Later, Well tries to wrap his head around this new world. He learns they live in the kingdom of Helmut, near a big capital city called Stuttgart. But their little corner of it, the Baumeister Knightdom, is just a rural area with about 800 people. So yeah, he's basically an 8th son of a broke countryside noble. And as if things weren't bad enough, he watches his older brothers pack up to leave home. Since the land can't be divided, only the eldest gets to inherit it, while the rest have to go fend for themselves in the capital. Eric pats Well on the head like a responsible big brother and tells him to stop daydreaming and start learning some actual skills, because 8th son is just another way of saying, good luck buddy. But instead of sulking, he heads straight to the family library, because if he's going to survive this 8th son life, he needs a plan. Unfortunately, their so-called library turns out to be 90% romance novels and bad poetry. So yeah, not exactly a gold mine of self-improvement material. As he's putting the useless books back, he accidentally knocks down a dusty old box. Inside, a piece of paper and a shiny crystal ball. The paper explains that it's a magic aptitude crystal used to measure a person's magical potential. Wells' first reaction? Yeah, right. But then he remembers, oh right, this is a fantasy world. Guess it's worth checking out. According to the note, only 1 in 1,000 people can actually use magic, so, statistically, Wells' chances are worse than winning the lottery. Still, he gives it a shot, places the crystal on the table, and tries pushing his so-called mana into it. Nothing happens. Exactly what he expected. But just when he's about to give up, the crystal suddenly flares up. Cut to a mysterious long-haired man in the forest who suddenly senses something. Uh-oh, looks like Wells' little science experiment just pinged on someone's radar. Back in the library, Wells stares at the glowing ball like, okay, that's definitely not normal. He skims through the paper again and finds that a bright, rainbow glow means exceptional magic potential. Naturally, he panics, in a good way, and starts tearing through the shelves looking for magic textbooks. All he finds are travel guides and love poems. Just then, his father walks in, and Well quickly asks if they have any other books about magic. Dad just shrugs and says, "Can't help you, son, I can't even read." So, yeah, no help there. Instead, he tells Well to go collect firewood. Out in the forest, Well decides to give magic another try, waving a stick around like a wizard, but nothing works. Frustrated, he slumps to the ground. He looks up to see that same long-haired man from earlier casually floating down from the sky. The man kneels, introduces himself politely, and asks Wells' name. Well, terrified out of his mind, tries to fight him off with the stick. The man just apologizes and tosses the stick aside, straight off a cliff. Smooth move, except that the stick knocks loose a giant boulder. Said boulder rolls down the cliff and crushes a massive wild boar. Because, why not? The boar, very much not dead, shakes off the rock and spots them on top of the cliff. Thinking they attacked it, it charges right up toward them. Well freaks out and tries to run, but the man grabs him, points his hands toward the boar, and shouts for him to imagine wind magic. Easier said than done, but as the boar rushes closer, Well starts feeling the mana flow through his body. His hands glow green, energy gathers, and boom! A gust of wind blasts from his palms, slamming into the charging boar. It's still angry, but before it can get back up, the man flicks his wrist and finishes the job with his own spell. With the danger gone, the man finally introduces himself as Alfred Reincarnated, a former court magician from the Blycrodaire dukedom. What is with these tongue-twister names? Why not Bob the Wizard or something? No, let's go with Wendelin von Benno Baumeister from the who knows where, taught by Alfred Reincarnated III of Blycrodaire dukedom. Try saying all that 3 times fast without summoning a dragon. Later that night, Wells back home, staring at his dinner. Basically hot water with tea leaves floating in it. It's tragic. Especially after the delicious tea Alfred gave him earlier. During their chat, Alfred explains that he wants to pass his magic down to Well. Well's confused, wondering if he's supposed to pay for lessons or something, but Alfred says he just wants a disciple. Before training begins though, he warns Well to keep his magic a secret. If people find out, he could get dragged into a messy fight over inheritance. The next day, training officially starts. Step 1. Matching capacities. Basically, syncing mana levels to match your teacher's flow. They hold hands, mana starts circulating, and Well immediately feels Alfred's immense energy. But then, something wild happens. Well's mana not only matches Alfred's, it surpasses it. Alfred stares at him in disbelief, realizing the kid's potential might be way beyond anything he expected. Meanwhile, back at the manor, Well's dad and his older brother Kurt notice that the crystal ball has moved from its usual spot. They laugh it off, assuming Well must have tried it, saw no reaction, and gave up feeling depressed. If only they knew, because out in the forest, Well's casually out here practicing fire magic. In just a few days, he's already mastering advanced spells, while Alfred watches proudly. To keep up appearances, Alfred even brings along a basket of mountain vegetables so Well can pretend he's just been foraging. That night, Well's family praises him for bringing home so many vegetables. His father's impressed, but his brother Kurt looks like he's one compliment away from snapping. When Dad asks where he found that particularly fancy vegetable, Well just smiles nervously, because yeah, it only grows on the other side of the river. A place no one can just stroll to without getting soaked. So when their dad jokes that maybe Well flew over there using magic, everyone laughs. everyone except Kurt, who suddenly looks way too thoughtful. A few days later, Well and Alfred are literally flying through the sky. The lesson of the day: tracking magic. While soaring above the trees, Well senses the vibrations and the layout of the land beneath them, pinpointing their target like a magical radar. When he finally locks on, he fires a wind-propelled rock that nails a bird midair. They roast their catch on the spot and enjoy a meal with a nice view. Well even pulls out a bottle of wasabi like it's some ancient relic from Earth. Alfred casually eats it without even flinching. As they eat, Alfred gives Well a serious warning: never wander too deep into the forest. Well nods, but admits he's been feeling uneasy lately. He tells Alfred that Kurt's been acting strange, following him around, watching him from a distance. Alfred suspects Kurt may have realized that Well can use magic and is starting to worry about his position as heir. Well sighs. He's not interested in that whole noble inheritance mess anyway. Being Lord sounds like a lifetime of paperwork and headaches, and he's already had enough of that in his office worker days. Still, he doesn't exactly know what else he wants to do. As he's lost in thought though, a faint violet glow suddenly flickers across Alfred's arm. The old magician hides it quickly, gripping his hand in pain and muttering for more time. That night at dinner, Will finally shares his big decision: he wants to become an adventurer. Kurt actually looks relieved, but their father shuts it down right away. The Adventurers Academy is too expensive. That's the end of it. Of course, Alfred isn't one to give up. During their next session, he takes Well to a tall hill overlooking a huge city, Brightburg, the trade capital. The place is alive with merchants, guilds, and noise. That's where the Adventurers Academy stands. Alfred explains that Well could earn his tuition by joining a merchant guild and selling magic items. But first, he has to master travel magic, starting with flying. Before Well can even react, Alfred grabs him by the arms and shoots into the sky. Well screams the whole way up, flailing like a terrified kid on his first roller coaster. But once Alfred steadies them, the view steals his breath. Forests, rivers, towns, all glowing under a golden sky. For the first time, Well realizes just how big the world really is. Later that night, Alfred sits alone again, fighting the dark curse spreading through his body. The violet light creeps across his arm as he grits his teeth and forces it down. The next day, while Well practices his flying magic, Alfred finally says what he's been avoiding. This will be their last lesson. Well protests immediately. 2 weeks can't be it. But Alfred cuts him off softly. His time is almost over. That night at dinner, their father mentions a rumor. A whispering dead has been spotted in the forest. It's a kind of undead that looks human and can even talk like one. But after a few years, it loses its mind and turns into a zombie. Well freezes. The cold touch, the calm voice, the wasabi immunity, it all clicks. His heart drops. He races into the forest, flying through branches, tripping over roots, calling Alfred's name. He finds him standing under the moonlight, calm as ever. Well begs him to come home, but Alfred just smiles sadly. He already knows. He is the whispering dead. 5 years ago, Alfred died protecting the Duke from monsters. His mana ran dry, but his will to teach was so strong that his soul lingered, turning him undead. When he sensed Well's magic, he took it as fate, a chance to finish what he couldn't in life. Now, that wish is complete. There's only one thing left, his final lesson. Alfred asks Well to release him with holy magic. Well refuses at first. He doesn't want to hurt him, but Alfred shows the black veins spreading across his body. He doesn't have long before he loses control. Well's hands shake as he begins the spell. Light gathers, darkness burns away. Alfred screams in pain but keeps shouting, "Don't stop!" Tears blur Well's eyes, but he pushes through. Finally, Alfred smiles through the light. "Remember everything I taught you." His voice fades as his body dissolves into pure light. Well bows deeply and releases the spell. The glow swallows Alfred completely. He's gone, finally free. Well falls to his knees, crying out into the night. But as the echo fades, he remembers Alfred's words, to live his life fully. Years pass. Well's grown now, ready to chase that dream. He waves goodbye to his mother and heads to the Adventurers Academy. The place is buzzing with students, training and laughing. In class, a confident blue-haired girl introduces herself, Louise. Then a pink-haired one, Ina. When it's his turn, Well stands and speaks clearly, Wendelin von Benno Baumeister. The teacher smiles and then drops the worst news ever, time for group work. That evening, Well sits alone in the cafeteria while the others laugh in groups. On a nearby table, Louise and Ina whisper about him. Turns out, Wells the only scholarship student in the entire class. Wells' reputation at the academy is kinda legendary. A blonde student named Erwin explains that Wells' magic power is so absurdly high that even the instructor gave up teaching him. Like, why bother when your student's already built different? Everyone wants him in their party, but no one's brave enough to ask. I mean, how do you walk up to a human nuke and say, "Wanna team up?" But Erwin has a plan. He figures Wells always alone because he's analyzing everyone, like some quiet genius secretly judging their stats. So, if they look strong enough, maybe they'll impress him. Erwin's the academy's top swordsman, Louise is the best martial artist, and Ina's deadly with a spear. The plan? Flex so hard that Well can't ignore them. Meanwhile, poor Well has no clue. He's just trying to make friends the normal way by sharing his prized collection of spices. Before he can even show them off, a bunch of loudmouths barge in and declare he's joining their group, the so-called Axe Trio. Well just sits there, watching everyone argue over him, and ends up alone again. Next class, the students head out for a hunting assignment. Wells excited, it's finally party time. Except, everyone already has one. Across the room, Louise thinks about inviting him, but Erwin stops her. He's convinced Wells going solo on purpose, like some test. He's watching us, he says. Spoiler alert, he's not. Later, everyone shows off their catches. Erwin's group proudly presents 3 boars. Then, Wells steps up, pulls out Alfred's magic bag, and casually unloads prey like he's running a wholesale market. The pile keeps growing until it fills the entire table. Everyone just stares. The Axe Trio immediately backs off and the rest quietly leave in defeat. Well, still clueless, just smiles like, "Nice, I can invite everyone to dinner." He turns around, everyone's gone. That night, Erwin bends to Louise and Ina. All 3 come from noble families, but aren't the oldest kids. They're basically backup heirs, born talented, but treated like second place. Their families even grew distant out of jealousy. They're tired of it. So, they decide to earn their worth by getting Wells recognition. Next day, they head deep into the forest, too deep, and get surrounded by wolves. Erwin's hurt, things look bad, and just when it's over, Wells senses the danger with his tracking magic. He rushes in, casts one spell, and massive rock spikes explode from the ground, wiping out the wolves instantly. Easy win. Afterward, the trio apologizes, admitting they only wanted Well to notice them. They accept that his magic's on another level and decide to give up on forming a party with him. But before Well can answer, their instructor bursts in, announcing they've been invited to a party hosted by the Duke himself. The room erupts until someone whispers the truth. The Duke only wants to meet, well, the Great Mage. At the party, Duke Amadeus Bleichrider greets Well personally, completely ignoring everyone else. But then, to everyone's shock, Well introduces Erwin, Louise, and Ina as his party members and insists they join him for the meeting. Smooth move, Well? Inside, the Duke presents his court magician, Brandtag Ringstad, Alfred's old teacher. Brandtag says he felt Alfred's magic vanish 7 years ago and guessed his student had finally found peace. When he sees Well with Alfred's bag and learns they're from the same region, it all makes sense. Well was Alfred's last disciple. Hearing about his student's final moments breaks Brandtag's heart, but he's grateful. Well helped him rest. Before leaving, Well returns the supplies from the Duke's expedition years ago, the same one Alfred died protecting. Later, Louise and the others talk about what they overheard. They feel guilty for misjudging him, realizing he's just like them, a spare noble trying to find his own way. When they apologize, Well laughs and admits he kinda used them too. He only dragged them to the Duke's meeting because he didn't want to face that creepy noble alone, but he adds with a smile that he really does want to form a real party with them. The others burst out laughing and welcome Well into their party. Finally, the prodigy isn't soloing life anymore. Things only get better when the Duke shows up and tells Well he'll be getting a finder's fee for returning Alfred's belongings. That fee? 1,000 gold coins. Oh, and he's also inheriting Alfred's entire estate. So, yeah, the kid just got stupid rich overnight. Later that night, Well sits alone in his massive new mansion. The place is so big it feels less like home and more like a gold-plated prison. He sighs, wondering if his new friends might move in someday, just to make it feel a little less empty. Cut to the skies. Well and his friends are flying toward the capital for his brother Eric's wedding on a magic airship. Louise is way too excited, dressed to impress, hoping to charm some noble into hiring her as a retainer, basically noble job hunting. Eric's marrying into the Brandt family, so there's no shortage of potential employers. Meanwhile, Erwin's clinging to a pole for dear life, not for dancing, but because he doesn't trust anything that flies. Brandtag, acting as their guide, tries to calm him down, saying magic airships never crash. Naturally, the universe hears that and says, "Wanna bet?" Dark clouds roll in, thunder cracks, and a massive skeletal dragon bursts out of the storm. The passengers immediately panic, screaming at the crew like angry customers demanding a manager. The poor crew swears they've got this. After all, they have the great magician Brandtag aboard. Except, in the control room, Brandtag's already admitting defeat. Turns out, undead dragons require holy magic, and that's not exactly in his toolkit. So, he gives, "Well, you got this look." Well tries to decline politely, but Brandtag hits him with some good old-fashioned peer pressure until he gives in. Well takes off into the sky, flying straight toward the dragon. The beast breathes out a wave of dark miasma, but Well blocks it just in time. The ground below? Gone. Brandtag throws up a massive barrier around the airship while Well starts chanting holy magic. The dragon spots him and charges, kicking off a mid-air chase that looks straight out of a boss fight. Well finishes his spell and fires. The dragon counters with acid breath, but Well's holy magic slices through it and hits dead on. The dragon lets out one final roar, because dying quietly would be too easy, and lunges again. Well shields himself, and the beast finally crumbles into dust. When it's over, Well calmly collects the remains like he's cleaning up after a cookout. Among the bones, he finds a glowing red gem, the dragon's core. Jackpot. Back on board, the crew throws an impromptu party. Brandtag even introduces one of his old teammates, a merchant named Eriterio. By morning, everyone's hungover except Well's group, who are already watching the sunrise as the capital of Stratburg comes into view. Once they land, Brandtag bails immediately, leaving the group under Eriterio's care just as the king's knights arrive. They thank Well for slaying the dragon and invite him to the palace. His friends? Yeah, they totally abandon him at the gate. Classic. The meeting goes well though. The king rewards Well with the rank of 6th baronet, which sounds super fancy, but I know you guys probably have no clue what that actually means, so let's break it down. A baronet is basically a noble title that sits just below a baron but still above your average peasant or knight. It's like the starter pack of nobility. You get the title, some respect, maybe a bit of land, but you're not quite in the rich uncle with a castle tier yet. As for the 6th part, that just means he's the 6th person in the entire kingdom to hold that rank. This title actually puts Well above his own dad who owns a knightdom and that stupid loser jealous brother of his. Yep, the family's 8th son just jumped straight to being their boss. Over at Eric's place, everyone's buzzing about it. Eric can't believe his little brother now outranks their dad, and technically could start his own noble house. Ina and the others worry he'll quit adventuring, but Brandtag assures them titles don't mean much unless you care about politics. Meanwhile, Well's learning firsthand how annoying nobles can be. The lords are arguing over how much to pay him for the dragon bones and gem. Thankfully, Cardinal Hohenheim steps in and tells them to just split the difference. Eriterio explains that both the church and the army are already trying to butter up Well for favors. Ah yes, politics, the true final boss. By sunset, Well finally leaves the palace. Outside, some random guy starts spinning a spear, like a fidget spinner, yelling for Well's attention. Eriterio calmly explains he's probably a knight trying to become Well's retainer. The guards quickly drag him away before he stabs someone or himself. At Eric's wedding, Well finds his brothers looking awkward. Turns out their family still hasn't sent a wedding gift, a major noble faux pas. Their eldest brother cutthroat saying they're broke, and their father's too proud to borrow money from Duke Amadeus. So now, the family looks stingy. Well steps up and offers to cover the gift himself. The wedding goes smoothly, and he's genuinely happy for his brother, though deep down, he's realizing that noble life? Total headache. After the ceremony, his luck finally turns around. Eriterio gives him something he's been searching for, a jar of soybeans. Yes, soybeans. Well immediately teleports home with his friends and spends the night cooking. Using magic to speed up fermentation. All that soybean sorcery? Just for one noble goal. Miso soup. Yup, our dragon slayer spent an entire night brewing soybeans just to taste that warm, nostalgic flavor again. And when it was finally ready, he shared it with everyone, family, friends, the whole gang. As he sipped that first spoonful, Well promised himself he'd become the kind of noble Alfred would have been proud of. Next morning, we jump to Well's baptism by Cardinal Hohenheim. To show his gratitude, Well drops a fat thank you gift. Then the door opens, and in walks a girl in a nun's outfit carrying tea. Well's brain? Instant blue screen. The girl introduces herself as Elise, the Cardinal's granddaughter, and as Well stands up to greet her, he feels something weird. She's radiating real magic. The Cardinal confirms it. Elise can use holy healing magic. She spends her days healing people and already has a nickname, Saint Hohenheim. But her grandpa just wants her to settle down and live a normal life. You know, stop saving the world and start dating. Turns out a bunch of noble families are lining up to propose. Well jokes, guess I should throw my hat in too. The Cardinal shoots back. So once you're of age then? Well laughs. Until he realizes that wasn't a joke. Congrats kid, you're now engaged to the girl you met 5 minutes ago. Cut to the Cardinal in his garden, sipping tea like a Bond villain, bragging about how brilliant his plan was. He's already got the king's approval, so even Duke Bleichroder can't object. And it's a sweet deal. Well's loaded, the gift he gave was literal gold, and marrying Elise to a rising noble boosts the family's influence. Politics and matchmaking, a divine combo. Meanwhile, at Eric's house, Well breaks the news. His friends are hyped, he's not. He kinda wanted to talk to her first, but Eric reminds him that this is normal noble stuff. He met his own wife on their wedding day. The reason Well's dressed like a literal court jester isn't because he's lost his mind. It's actually a disguise. He's hiding his identity so no one realizes that he is actually the Dragon Slayer. The group laughs and starts pretending to put clown makeup on Well for saying yes so fast. Next scene, Well the clown, in disguise, sneaking through the capital to avoid attention. Erwin tags along as his wingman, pushing him to buy a gift for Elise. Well's unsure what she even thinks about the engagement, but he picks out some cookies anyway. Then, chaos. He bumps into that guy, the wannabe retainer from before, aka the human fidget spinner with a spear. Erwin swears no one will recognize him like this. TI, until the guy points and yells, "It's him!" I recognize those teeth. Instantly, every knight nearby starts begging to be hired, and the spear guy starts spinning again like a Beyblade. Well, done with this nonsense, just teleports away mid-chaos. Back home, Eric gives the obvious advice, hire someone already so the mobs stop. Erwin immediately volunteers. Well shrugs and says, sure. Boom, Erwin just got promoted from comic relief to official retainer. Later, Well teleports to the Hohenheim mansion, stealth style, to deliver the cookies. The Cardinal almost spots him, so he dives for cover like it's a war zone. When Elise appears, he grabs her hand and pulls her onto the rooftop to hide. He finally offers the cookies, which are now crushed to dust. Trying to play it cool, he hides the crumbs behind his back and awkwardly asks what she thinks about their engagement. Elise smiles and says she's happy. Her grandfather chose Well, and she's honored to be engaged to the Dragon Slayer. Back at Eric's, Erwin can't stop bragging about his new title. Louise and Ina are fuming. They spent the day shopping while he got promoted. Louise jokes about becoming Well's concubine instead. Then, she actually tries it. She shows up in a flashy new outfit and starts what can only be described as an interpretive, please notice me dance. Well just blinks, quietly leaves, and shuts the door. That night, Louise rips up her outfit, swearing to take things seriously from now on. Ina, inspired, vows to do the same. Meanwhile, Well gets a dinner invitation from Elise. The next day, they sit across from each other, both blushing, both painfully awkward. The air's so tense you could cut it with a spoon, a miso spoon. Dinner wraps up, and Well's just about to say his polite goodbyes when the Hohenheim butler leans in and whispers that he should give Elise a gift to mark their first date. So off they go to a jewelry shop, shelves lined with rings that sparkle like they're screaming for attention. Well, it's all tacky, overpriced, and painfully noble. Elise gently says he doesn't need to buy anything fancy, but, well, insists money isn't a problem. He did slay a dragon after all. Then he spots it, a plain, elegant ring tucked away in the corner. No flashy gems, no blinding shine, just simple perfection. The store owner instantly tries to upsell him, calling it too dull for an engagement, but Well catches the small smile Elise gives it. That's all he needs. He buys it on the spot. Later, he learns it costs 6 times more than the others because it's made of a rare magic stone. Smooth move, well. On the carriage ride back, Elise shyly asks if he knew what the ring was made of. The shopkeeper told her it can store massive amounts of magic, so she assumes that's why he bought it. But Well just shakes his head. He says he didn't care about that. It just felt right for her. Then, in a rare moment of honesty, he admits life in the capital's been exhausting. Everyone treats him like a dragon slayer, not a person. He says he really respects how Elise handles being called a saint without losing herself. Touched, Elise just listens as Well enchants the ring. A soft red glow fills the carriage, bursting into an illusion of starlight. It's quiet, warm, and surprisingly romantic. Probably the first time Well's ever done something this smooth on accident. Elise just stares, clearly moved. Later that night, the cardinal checks in with his butler, curious about his take on Well. The butler says he's different, not like the others who treat Elise like some holy relic. He just treats her like a normal girl. And that, honestly, says a lot. Meanwhile, back at Eric's house, Erwin, Louise, and Ina are enjoying city life. Erwin casually asks how Operation Seduce Well is going. The girls shrug. No rush. Well's busy with Elise anyway. They'll make their move once they're back in Brightburg. Then, Elise suddenly shows up. The trio freezes like kids caught gossiping, praying she didn't hear a thing. Thankfully, she's just there to ask what kind of person Well really is. Over at the palace, Well's meeting with the king goes exactly how you'd expect. Another royal favor disguised as a polite request. The king asks him to slay another dragon. Apparently, once you do it once, you're automatically HR's go-to guy for dragon issues. The Knight Commander briefs him and Brantag, the kingdom wants to develop the Palkinia Prairie to fix food shortages. Problem is, that land's already claimed by an ancient dragon named Gregorland. Only mages can survive its breath, so the king's sending the 2 of them to handle it. Well's not sure 2 mages are enough, but then comes the bonus teammate. Enter Armstrong, a human mountain who looks like he should be suplexing boulders instead of casting spells. He bursts into the room, kneels before the king, and declares that the 3 of them will depart immediately. Despite the theatrics, Armstrong's a powerhouse mage, and definitely a show-off. The trio sets off, flying toward the garrison near the prairie. Armstrong leads the charge, zooming ahead like he's late for leg day, while Well and Brantag trail behind, wondering what they signed up for. The garrison will serve as their base to plan the attack and stock up before facing Gregorland. Back home, Eric explains the real deal to the others. Killing the dragon isn't the only job. Once it's gone, all the monsters in the prairie will swarm nearby towns, so Well also has to wipe those out. He's even allowed to form a temporary army for it. When asked why a real landed noble isn't leading, Eric gives the political truth. If a landed noble does it, they'll demand the land afterward. But if, well, a rogue noble handles it, the crown can just throw him a medal, a bag of gold, and keep the land for themselves. Classic royal move. Then chaos hits. Outside the estate, a crowd of knights gathers at the gate, all begging to be Well's retainers. And front and center, our favorite spinning spear guy, twirling away like a human Beyblade. Erwin sighs, already pitying whoever has to manage this circus. Then Eric drops the bomb. That's you, Erwin. Since Well's away, his official retainer has to command the army. Erwin panics, but the others cheer him on anyway, and so, a few days later, Erwin, now a very nervous commander, marches off with a mismatched army of nobles' kids and desperate knights. Everyone's here chasing glory and promotion, but when night falls and the laughter fades, even the girls admit it. This is their first real battle, and they're scared. Thankfully, the girls and Erwin only have to deal with regular monsters. Nothing like Well's first welcome to battle, where his opponent was a skeletal dragon. Yeah, tough act to follow. When morning comes, Well, Brantag and Armstrong overlook the dragon's den, a massive crater littered with rock formations that look disturbingly like claws. The ground trembles as the dragon stirs from its slumber. Those rocks crack apart, revealing glistening green scales underneath. And then, with one earth-shaking roar, the real battle begins. Armstrong wastes no time. He activates a spell that coats him in enchanted armor, transforming him into a walking tank wielding a giant hammer. Then, in an absolutely ridiculous flex of physics, he leaps into the sky and slams the hammer into the dragon's skull. Well, staring up at this madness, can't help but be impressed. Armstrong's magic literally converts mana into raw physical power. Basically, he's using magic to bench press dragons. To make things crazier, his armor's defense is even tougher than a regular magic barrier. When Armstrong smashes the dragon back into the ground like he's playing whack-a-mole, Brantag calmly tells Well to get ready. Armstrong locks the dragon down in a full-on wrestling match, and Well starts wondering if they even need him here. But Brantag reminds him that Armstrong's spell burns through mana faster than a gacha addict through paychecks. If Armstrong runs dry, he's toast. That's why Well needs to land the finishing blow. Armstrong gives the signal, and Well releases a massive spell that binds the dragon in place. The beast thrashes and roars, but there's no escaping that one. Back at camp, Elise can't take her eyes off the horizon, her mind clearly on Well. Erwin and the others arrive with breakfast, trying to lighten the mood. They even make miso soup, the same one Well helped create back home. Their easy banter brings a smile to her face, at least until a messenger rushes in with breaking news: the dragon's been defeated. Out on the battlefield, Well seals the dragon's massive corpse inside his magic bag. The mission doesn't pay much, so they plan to sell the remains later. Dragons, after all, are practically made of premium materials. But before Well can celebrate, Brantag and Armstrong warn him that this is only the beginning. Alfred didn't die from a mighty foe, he was overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Hours later, the real chaos begins. The monsters pour in, and the camp turns into a flood of injured soldiers. Elise works non-stop, healing every wounded man brought back from the front lines. Even the soldiers admit they'd have fallen long ago, if not for the mages. Hearing that, Elise's worry for Well only deepens, but she pushes it down. All she can do now is keep everyone alive. She pours every drop of mana she has into healing, even tapping into the stored power within her ring, the one Well gave her. When that runs dry, she doesn't stop. She grabs bandages and herbs, patching wounds the old-fashioned way. By the time she sits down for a breather, she's pale with exhaustion. A nearby knight, noticing her, strikes up a conversation. He asks if she's really engaged to the Dragon Slayer himself. Elise, trying not to sound desperate, asks if Well's safe at the front. The knight smiles and assures her that not only is Well fine, he's the reason they're winning. Heroes like him, the knight says, are simply built different. Those words sting a little. Elise remembers what Well once told her, how much he hated being treated like a hero. She realizes he must be suffering under that same pressure even now, pretending to be the perfect savior everyone needs. So she makes up her mind, if he won't complain, she'll just have to support him silently, as the Saint Hohenheim. All through the night, she keeps working until her hands ache and her mana's gone. Just as she's about to collapse, a soldier bursts in, yelling that they've finally won, but they need a rescue team. Sir Baumeister's been injured. Elise's heart drops. She bolts through the camp, calling out for, but when she reaches the injured soldiers, she realizes it's actually one of his brothers who's hurt. Then she hears a familiar voice. Wells, calling her name. He's completely fine, just covered in dust and looking worried about her. Relief floods through her, and all the exhaustion she's been holding back crashes in at once. She faints right there in his arms. Elise wakes too well beside her. He shares that the frontline soldiers credit their victory to her healing. The Saint. Realizing the isolation that comes with being hailed a hero, Elise grasps Well's hand. Suddenly, Armstrong bursts in, hugging Elise and revealing he's her uncle. Shocking. Well. A few days later, Well and his friends move into a new house in the capital, planning to stay for good. Elise visits with miso soup, and to clear up a misunderstanding, she thought Louise and Ina, who live with him, were his fiancés. Well quickly explains they're only party members. He then tentatively asks Elise about concubines, and to his surprise, she's fine with the idea, leaving him with no excuse when Louise and Ina volunteer to be his concubines again. The next episode starts with yet another wedding, Well's brother Helmut getting married, which the show uses as a quick time jump. Each of Well's friends is slowly climbing the social ladder, but none more so than Well himself, now the talk of the entire kingdom. And how do nobles celebrate such fame? With a tournament, of course, because apparently that's what passes for noble entertainment. Every noble must compete at least once in their life, with categories in swordsmanship, spearmanship, archery, and hand-to-hand combat, basically the medieval Olympics. As a noble, Well's expected to fight with a sword. He even wonders if he could secretly use magic like Armstrong, but Eric quickly shuts that down. Magic's strictly forbidden in the tournament. Each morning, Louise, Ina, and Erwin go on their daily jog. As always, Erwin spends the whole run complaining about how unfair it is that the girls can use magic to enhance their bodies. He wishes he could too, but low mana, has practically become his defining trait. During one run, they even spot Well flying overhead, looking all serious, probably off to overwork himself again. Later, Brandtag drops by with an announcement. Duke Amadeus has ordered Louise and Ina to participate in the tournament as well. Apparently, noble daughters need to make a good showing too. The girls immediately jump up to start training, while Erwin stays sprawled on the sofa like a man who's already accepted defeat. Brandtag warns him that if he doesn't shape up, he might get kicked out of the party for dragging them down, and that finally lights a fire under him. At dinner, Well shares some good news. The reigning champion Warren has decided to withdraw, giving others a fair shot. He also suggests adding Elise, a healer, to their team, which everyone quickly agrees to. But Erwin starts feeling even more like the odd one out. Motivated by insecurity and mild panic, he boldly declares that he'll win the tournament to prove his worth. The next day, Erwin goes full training montage, sprinting past the girls, pushing through endless drills, and practicing until his hands bleed. Meanwhile, Well tries to keep pace and ends up bedridden from exhaustion. So, progress? Erwin's hard work starts to impress everyone, and for a while the group's confidence is sky high. Then the king throws a wrench into things by ordering Warren, yes, that Warren, to re-enter the tournament. So much for Erwin's clear path to victory. Feeling useless, he isolates himself and insists that, unlike his magic-using teammates, he can only prove himself through results. His frustration leads to hurtful comments, especially toward the girls. But the next morning, after a talk with Well, who's too stressed dealing with Elise's nerves to give a proper answer, Erwin realizes everyone's got their own insecurities. So, he apologizes and makes amends. When tournament day finally arrives, the team heads to the arena. Elise shows up with lovingly prepared bento lunches, because nothing says, ready for battle, like homemade food. Well's first opponent? Warren. The Knight Commander himself. The guy who was supposed to skip this one. The match starts and ends immediately. Warren knocks Well out cold with the hilt of his sword before anyone can blink. No mercy. When Well wakes up, he's sitting with the others, drinking tea while his teammates continue fighting. Erwin's tearing through opponents in swordsmanship. Louise battles her way to the semi-finals in hand-to-hand despite the magic ban, and Ina dominates the spearmanship rounds. Ina eventually reaches the final preliminary match, where she faces none other than Roderick, the so-called human fidget spinner. He's thrilled to fight her, mostly because Well's watching. The match begins, and he starts spinning and thrusting his spear like a Beyblade possessed. Ina tries to counter, but he deflects every strike and disarms her with ease. Afterward, Ina returns to the group and admits that, nickname aside, Roderick's genuinely skilled. But while she's explaining all this, Well has already dozed off mid-conversation, exhausted after staying up all night cooking the very lunches Elise brought. Erwin had just pulled off a huge win in his semi-final match, but victory came at a steep price. Bloodied from a deep shoulder wound, he learns his next opponent in the finals is none other than the Knight Commander himself, Warren, the same man who one-shotted Well earlier. As the girls rush to treat him, an official begs Erwin to forfeit, warning that fighting again would be suicide. But Erwin's already decided he's not backing down. The girls admit they know what Brandtag said about him being a liability, and Erwin agrees, saying Brandtag was just being honest. Then they pull out their secret weapon, the lunchbox Well made for them. To them, that's proof enough. Well would never abandon his friends. Taking a bite, Erwin looks at his bandaged shoulder and resolves to stop doubting himself. As a proud member of Well's party, quitting isn't an option. Days later, Erwin and Ina begin training under Warren's direct supervision. Talk about a level up. Meanwhile, Louise drags Well off to train with her and her master. Well's excited until he realizes her master is Armstrong, the human battering ram himself. He instantly knows what's coming, endless muscle training. He sighs, accepts his fate, and joins in. Fast forward a few years. Back in the Baumeister Knightdom, where Well's family is still struggling to make the land livable. Kurt's buried in tax documents when his wife bursts in, visitors from the capital. Annoyed, he assumes they're here to talk about his famous little brother again. Sure enough, a messenger hands him a letter from the royal auditor. Kurt passes it to his wife without reading, until she gasps. The letter says, Well is dead. Apparently, the dragon slayer himself perished while exploring ancient ruins. Just days earlier, everything had been going great. Well had finally become a full-fledged adventurer, free from noble duties and ready to go wherever he pleased. His first official quest? A royal commission to investigate some ruins? Naturally, the kingdom's favorite adventurer got the call. Brantag joins as their advisor and briefs them. Multiple adventurer teams had gone before, none returned. Even the veterans sent to check on them vanished. Inside the ruins, tension builds. The tunnels stretch endlessly, and Wells scolds his team for crowding him. Erwin retorts that since Wells the only one who's fought a dragon, he should be up front, as their meat shield. Brantag uses detection magic until they reach a massive stone door. It's too quiet. Suddenly, Brantag yells for everyone to run, but too late. The doors slam shut, a glowing magic circle appears and their feet stick to the floor. One by one, they vanish in a flash of light. Elise reaches for Wells' hand, but he disappears before she can grab him, and moments later, she's gone too. They wake in a different chamber. A cheerful sign reads, "Welcome to reverse hanging." Brantag concludes they've been teleported straight to the deepest level. Louise optimistically suggests, Well can just teleport them out, but he shakes his head. He needs to know both his current and destination coordinates. Since they're lost, the only option is to climb their way out. As they move forward, Elise clings nervously to Wells' cloak, and he reassures her with a smile, but the next chamber seals shut and ancient soldier golems awaken. Well readies a spell, but the others stop him. They can't afford to waste his mana. The three fighters take point, sword, spear, and fists against stone, while Brantag and Well provide support magic. After the battle, Elise heals them, and Ina notices skeletons lining the walls. Brantag grimly notes they're likely the remains of adventurers who came before. They continue upward, finding more golems at every staircase. Outside, the king and Armstrong grow uneasy. 5 days have passed with no word from Wells' team. The nobles, ever the vultures, have begun spreading rumors that Baron Baumeister is dead. But when Cardinal Hohenheim passes by, they nervously ask about his granddaughter Elise. He calmly assures them both she and Well are still alive. Then, turning a corner, he runs into Lord Commissioner Ruckner, and judging by his expression, the news he brings won't be good. The culprit is the Lord Commissioner's own brother, Baron Rucknor, the royal auditor. And he's not just gossiping, he's plotting. Ruckner sends a letter to the Baumeister estate, informing Kurt of his brother's tragic death and suggesting Kurt's sons inherit Wells' title. It's all part of his scheme to topple his brother and claim the Lord Commissioner's seat for himself. Meanwhile, deep in the ruins, Wells' party is barely holding on. 5 days of non-stop fighting golems has left them exhausted and bruised, running on scraps of food and little sleep. Still, Well keeps morale up, sharing what's left of their rations with Elise. They've climbed floor after floor, crushing endless waves of enemies. But fatigue and wounds are catching up fast. The next chamber is larger, twice the number of golems. Elise heals a battered Erwin, who jokes that this might be how they die. Elise scolds him, and he laughs it off, saying it'd suck to die before beating Warren in a fair fight. His words hit her harder than he knows. She turns to, Well, eyes steady, and says they'll survive, because if they don't, she'll regret not marrying him sooner, and they move forward, determined to live. The next door opens to nothing. An empty room. Erwin cheers, until Brantag spots movement. A colossal statue unfolds its wings, a dragon golem, alive and ready to kill. But then, soldier golems flood in from behind. They're surrounded. Erwin and Louise cover the rear while Elise heals a critically wounded Ina, burning through all her mana, even tapping her ring's reserves. Ina survives, but Well and Brantag's mana is nearly gone. The dragon's next strike will finish them, unless Well ends it first. Brantag warns it's made of mithril, resistant to magic, but lends him his remaining power anyway. Their combined blast surges forward. Brantag collapses with a faint smile, saying, Well reminds him of Alfred, before passing out. Now it's all on Well. He's straining against the dragon's lightning, body shaking as the beam pushes him back. Just as he's about to black out, he whispers an apology. And Elise steps forward. She says she'll cast a spell called Miracle Light, then kisses him. A surge of magic floods through him, nearly overwhelming his senses. His power explodes outward, overpowering the dragon's breath in a blinding flash. When the light fades, the dragon lies shattered, and every other golem falls silent. The fight is over. The party rushes to the unconscious. Hours later, Well wakes to Louise and Ina teasing about Elise's spell. Turns out, Miracle Light doesn't need a kiss. She just took her shot. Hard to blame her. Near death makes people honest. Once recovered, they regroup with Brantag, who explains the ruins belonged to a legendary mage known for crafting artifacts. Then Erwin shouts for them to come see, a hidden shipyard filled with ancient airships, the prototypes their kingdom's modern fleet is based on. When he presses a random button, a huge door opens, sunlight flooding in. After days underground, they're finally free. Their discovery shakes the entire kingdom. The royal court rewards each member with 2 million gold coins, enough to make nobles jealous. After the celebrations, Well tells Armstrong they plan to return home and continue adventuring there. Armstrong agrees and vows to hunt down whoever started the death rumor. That's when Well learns about the whispers, lies, and envy swirling among nobles. He just sighs, smiling wearily. After everything he's faced, gossip is the least of his worries. Ina, ever the voice of reason, notes their fame is backfiring. Thanks to their link with, well, people have started harassing them too, and now that each of them is getting 2 million gold, the attention will only intensify. So she proposes something bold. They'll use the Adventurer Guild's dispute system to give their entire reward to, well, Elise, as his fiancée, throws in all her assets too. Meanwhile, in Auditor Rucknor's mansion, the noble schemers are at it again. Their new agenda? How to get rid of Well for good. As they whisper in secret, a pink-haired girl listens from outside, a cloaked spy quietly observing. Inside, Well and friends are simply having cookies. When Well spots movement by the window, he finds nothing, but decides they'll need better security back home. Someone loyal, skilled, and dependable. Enter the perfect choice, Roderick, the human fidget spinner himself. He's begged to be Well's retainer for 3 years, and when Well finally says yes, the man bursts into tears of joy, equal parts touching and chaotic. But the spy isn't done. Later that day, she returns, watching them eat lunch. Their battle instincts kick in. Louise dashes to the window, Erwin shields. Well, but the spy's already gone. Roderick vows to track her down and warns Well to leave the capital, but Well refuses. He's got unfinished business. The pink-haired spy disappears into the crowd. That afternoon, the group visits the Magic Guild, where researchers study a teleportation spell Well found in the ruins. Lucas, the head researcher, proudly shows off a new prototype that can summon anything the user imagines. Sounds great, until Erwin jokes about panty thieves. Naturally, that thought derails. Well, who accidentally summons the underwear of one of the mages present. She smacks him, Elise fumes, and Well stammers that it was just a mistake. He tries again, focusing harder, and this time the light is enormous, like he might have summoned a giant's wardrobe. Outside, the spy spots them leaving the guild with a wagon full of supplies but loses them when Well teleports the group away. Across town, Roderick tails the noble sneaking out of Rucknor's mansion, while Rucknor smirks from his window, convinced he's untouchable. Back at Well's place, the spy returns to find a lively farewell party. Well's hosting a feast to thank everyone. Duke Amadeus, Armstrong, Brantag, even Cardinal Hohenheim. He unveils a massive platter of sushi made from tuna he summoned using the same teleportation spell. The nobles stare, baffled, until he explains soy sauce and sushi etiquette. A few bites later, they're hooked. Outside, the spy watches hungrily, nose pressed to the glass. During the party, Roderick reports his findings. The man spreading rumors of Well's death is Auditor Rucknor himself. Well's shocked, he's never even met the guy. Roderick explains, Rucknor tried to exploit Well's death to gain favor with the Baumeisters, hoping to influence Kurt and his sons once they inherited the title. But Roderick doesn't stop there. He spreads a counter-rumor across the city that Rucknor was the one who plotted to kill Well. Within hours, the story spreads to the royal castle. The king summons Rucknor immediately. Then comes the real twist. Roderick reveals he's Rucknor's illegitimate son. The bastard just outplayed his own father in a political chess match. As the chaos dies down, Elise brings in a plate of tuna, offering it around. But outside, the pink-haired spy finally snaps. She crashes through the window, eyes locked on Well. Erwin jumps in to stop her, only to get flipped over like a sack of laundry. The pink-haired spy suddenly charges straight at Well. Everyone braces for a fight. But instead of attacking, she stops at the table and grabs a piece of sushi. Well just stands there, half confused, half terrified. Then Lord Marshal Edgar, the kingdom's top military man, steps forward to explain. The sushi thief is Wilma, his daughter. Wilma casually says she was investigating Well to see if he was worthy of feeding her. After watching his meals, tea, cake, sushi, she's decided he passed. Mission complete. A mortified Edgar apologizes while Brantag mutters that Wilma clearly has hero syndrome. Her body constantly channels magic, making her absurdly strong but also constantly hungry. Elise and Ina adore her instantly. Edgar, though, has another idea. He wants, well, to hire Wilma as his bodyguard and maybe marry her while he's at it. Well politely declines, saying he just wants to go home and hunt monsters. That innocent comment catches Edgar's attention. He turns to Duke Amadeus and asks if he's really sending Well to do that. Amadeus grins. Actually, yes. And that brings us back to the present, when Kurt opens the ominous letter claiming Well's dead, with a note that his sons might inherit the title. Kurt laughs at his sudden luck, until his wife screams. Outside stands Well himself, alive with his whole party. Brantag takes over, explaining, 15 years ago, Duke Bleicherreiter led an expedition into the Baumeister forest for rare medicine. It ended in disaster, 2,000 dead now wandering as zombies. The current Duke Amadeus has hired Well to purify the place. The village chief suggests the usual 30%, but Kurt, being Kurt, demands 50%. Everyone stares like he's lost it. Brantag calmly notes they're even returning the soldiers' belongings. Herman tries to reason with him, but Kurt argues the dead had nothing valuable anyway and the funerals were already done. Elise explains that funerals alone don't bring peace. The corpses must be purified. She even offers to perform the rites herself. Kurt accuses her of trying to profit off donations. Erwin slams the table, but Well steps in to calm things before it explodes. His friends remind Kurt they came to negotiate with the Lord, not his jealous heir. Kurt's about to blow when salvation comes from the loudest source, Wilma's stomach. The thunderous growl breaks the tension. Later that night, Kurt gathers the men of the territory, insisting Well's only there for profit, not family. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Well's party enjoys dinner. Herman admits Kurt's paranoia began the moment Well left, terrified his younger brother might return and steal his place. Marlene, Herman's wife, arrives with food, instantly earning Wilma's admiration. She scolds Herman for not offering Brantag a drink, though Brantag surprisingly declines. Then Marlene shares something personal. Her grandfather died in that doomed expedition. Well promises to bring back any of his belongings, making her smile and quietly wish he were heir instead. The next day, the team enters the enchanted forest. To draw out the undead, they start hurling insults. Apparently, even zombies respond to trash talk. The horde emerges, and the forest turns blood red like a horror film. Elise and Well raise a massive purification circle, disintegrating any zombie that enters. Erwin grumbles they're not fighting, but Brantag reminds him that collecting relics is still work. One by one, the undead fade, until the fallen Duke himself appears and passes on peacefully. Only one remains, Marlene's grandfather. But instead of him, an undead wyvern crashes from above. It roars, ready to devour them, until Wilma steps forward and cleaves its head off in a single swing. The purification wave sweeps through again, lighting up the battlefield. But the forest isn't done. New, undead beasts begin pouring from the trees. The real fight has only just begun. The battle finally ends, leaving everyone utterly drained. Hours of non-stop zombie slaying will do that. Marlene's grandfather makes his dramatic, fashionably late entrance. When Well cautiously approaches, the undead suddenly speaks. Turns out the old man has become a Lich, the kind of monster that can level towns for fun. But instead of attacking, he simply asks about his granddaughter. Well clarifies that she's, well, relieved. The Lich drops his sword and lets Elise purify him in peace. With the mission done, the group returns fallen soldiers' belongings to their families. The villagers are grateful until Kurt shows up like a storm cloud, ordering all the armor and weapons confiscated for farming use. The townsfolk protest, wanting to bury the gear as tribute, so Well just summons a giant block of iron and hands it to Kurt. Problem solved, though Kurt's scowl says he's not happy being upstaged by his little brother. Afterward, Duke Amadeus promises to properly catalog the relics, and Well finally relaxes, until the Duke tells him to stay on standby, never a good sign. As Well's group departs, Amadeus and Ruckner watch from afar, clearly plotting something. Back in the village, the chief invites everyone to the funeral. Elise leads a moving ceremony, while the villagers quietly fume over Kurt's absence. Later at dinner, Well declines the villagers' wine and suggests they offer it to Brantag, who refuses again, oddly enough. Then Kurt's wife, Amalie, arrives with their children to pay respects. The boys excitedly meet their famous uncle, while Ina and Louise retell his adventures like a live-action fairy tale. Well even hands out homemade candy, wholesome family vibes before the inevitable chaos. That night, the village chief privately proposes that Well become the new lord of the territory. Well's shocked, but the chief insists it's what everyone wants. He argues that Well could still adventure while leaving management to someone like Roderick. Basically, you can have it all. Then Brantag drops the real bombshell. This isn't just the villagers' wish, it's the king's plan. The crown's been trying to develop the southern lands for years, but can't replace Kurt outright without angering other nobles. So they sent Well home to fix things naturally. Brantag even admits he's been sober all along, secretly protecting Well from Kurt's schemes, and that all the reward money was actually seed funding for his future rule. The next morning, Well tells his party everything. They're stunned, especially that he's unsure, but watching him play with his nephews makes it clear why he hesitates. Accepting would strip the kids of their noble titles. Unfortunately, the village chief overhears their private talk. That evening, the villagers burst in, demanding Well accept the title immediately. Herman tries calming them, but they refuse to back down. Brantag spots the chief lurking nearby and warns him that meddling in royal affairs could get people killed. The chief relents, but not before warning, watch out for Lady Amelie. Sure enough, she's been eavesdropping too, watching as Kurt orders his men to punish anyone defying him, proof he's gone too far. By morning, Well's still torn. Brantag informs him that accepting the title means Kurt won't just be replaced, he'll be silenced for good. So, when Well finally meets Kurt, he tries for peace, offering to take some undeveloped land instead and help fund Kurt's ambitions. But knowing Kurt, diplomacy might be above his pay grade. Well's offer is simple, a win-win for everyone. Kurt keeps all his current lands, while Well takes the undeveloped territory to turn it into something prosperous. He stares at his brother like he's selling snake oil. In his paranoid mind, this is a plot to steal authority bit by bit. Outside, Well runs into Amelie. He admits his plan probably wouldn't have made anyone truly happy, but was his best chance at peace. Amelie listens quietly, saying all she cares about is her children's safety. She's even tried to bring them closer to Well, hoping he'll spare their noble status if he ever becomes lord. Well thanks her and leaves, burdened yet calmer. That night, he decides he'll accept the title of lord on his own terms, no bloodshed. His friends immediately agree to stand by him. The next day, they strike back with an economic assault, in the form of a bazaar. Well sells his condiments, Louise opens a clothing stall, Ina crafts goods, and Erwin sells weapons, because someone's always buying swords. The townsfolk love it. Kurt's supporters, not so much. Their shops sit empty, and they run to Kurt whining like children. Some even suggest killing Well. Kurt refuses, not from mercy, but realism. You don't fight a guy who can vaporize a dragon. On their way back, the group suddenly finds themselves surrounded by Well. But instead of punishing them, he recruits them, offering funding and training to rebuild their shops. Well also arranges to send Kurt to a church instead of facing execution. All that's left is Cardinal Hohenheim's approval. Meanwhile, Roderick reports that nobles are swarming like flies. With Ruckner and Edgar backing, Well, others scramble to join his side. But behind the scenes, things turn darker. Auditor Ruckner secretly gives his subordinate a mysterious artifact to deliver to Kurt. Days later, Kurt sits alone, fuming. Left stewing in paranoia, Kurt grabs a knife, ready to kill Well himself until Ruckner's man appears, holding out a flute. He claims it's the legendary dragon's flute, said to summon dragons at a single note. Desperate, Kurt accepts. Soon after, Brantag senses trouble. Kurt's heading into the forest alone. The trap has worked better than expected. The group lies in wait, suspecting he's carrying something dangerous. In the woods, Well accidentally runs into him. Kurt isn't fooled. He calls out the hidden retainers, forcing everyone to reveal themselves. With a bitter grin, he mocks, Well, the Dragon Slayer, the Baron, the perfect brother now stealing his airship. He raises the dragon's flute, warning them not to move or he'll summon every dragon for miles. Brantag goes pale. If Kurt blows that thing, hundreds of dragons could descend, and even Well might not survive. Elise pleads with him, reminding him the dragons would also destroy innocent people, but Kurt's lost in delusion. To him, everyone has betrayed him, family, friends, servants. He vows to wipe them out and make a new family from the ashes. Then he blows the flute. Thunder shakes the forest, the ground splits open, and instead of dragons, ghosts claw their way out. Well tries to intervene, but Wilma stops him. Brantag's face hardens. He knew it. The dragon's flute is no legend, it's the flute of malice. It doesn't summon dragons, it feeds on hatred, amplifying the user's power until it devours them. The ghosts swarm around Kurt, their energy fusing into one grotesque, towering creature with Kurt trapped at its core. Brandtag yells for, well, to unleash his magic, insisting Kurt's already gone, but well, just stares at the monster that used to be his brother. The creature lunges. Before it hits, a golden light flares. Elise's purification magic shields them both. For a moment she holds it back, but the strain's too much. When she steadies herself, it's clear she's ready to give everything, even her life, to stop it. That's when Well snaps out of it. Their magic merges, flooding the air with blinding gold. The monster's roar fades, its body dissolving into dust, until only the cursed flute clatters to the ground. Peace doesn't last. Kurt's vengeful spirit rips across the kingdom, drawn by hatred. It streaks into Auditor Ruckner's mansion. Before he can speak, the spirit attacks. By morning, knights seal the mansion. Well and Roderick arrive to find Ruckner and his co-conspirators dead, purified after the rampage. Rumors spread fast. Kurt was behind it all. Amalie and her sons, unsafe amid the gossip, move in with Herman. For, well, the victory feels hollow. He's hailed as a hero again, yet couldn't save his own brother. He's sick of it. The politics, the scheming nobles, the endless hypocrisy. Brandtag dryly reminds him he's a noble schemer too, which stings. That evening, Well drifts through town, eats quietly with his friends, and keeps his thoughts to himself. Later, he asks Elise if he ever seems distant. She admits he does. Sometimes, even beside her, he feels miles away. It hits hard. Maybe he's still clinging to his old world instead of living in this one. Elise takes his hand, and Well finally smiles. From now on, he'll live as a proper noble, not a visitor in someone else's story. When the king summons him, Well receives control of the undeveloped family lands. Asked what reward he wants, he boldly requests the right to grant 2 noble titles, to fill the seats left by Ruckner's fallen allies. The court erupts. The king frowns, Edgar scolds him, and Hohenheim demands he retract it. Edgar even suggests giving the land to someone else, igniting a shouting match among nobles. Amadeus defends. Well, chaos ensues, until Armstrong booms for silence. He advises, Well, to withdraw, then slyly proposes the king give him part of the land instead. The king smirks, seeing through it instantly. He rejects Armstrong's ploy, grants Well the lands, the right to appoint 2 nobles, and promotes him to count. Armstrong winks. The act worked. Afterward, the king laughs, calling Well shrewd but praising his growth. Armstrong just bellows his trademark laugh. Back home, Well visits Amalie and tells her he'll grant noble titles to her sons when they're grown. She's stunned, then grateful. Her boys, she says, will someday understand their father's fate was his own doing. From there, Well throws himself into developing the land, the same project from episode 1. Churches rise under Hohenheim's banner, facilities under Ruckner, Edgar, and Amadeus, all part of the deals that secured his position. But one project is entirely his, a full-scale miso and soy sauce workshop. Priorities, of course. As his friends arrive with new plans and chaos brews around him, Well just smiles. Life as a noble might be exhausting, political, and occasionally cursed. But surrounded by friends, laughter, and good food, he finally realizes being the 8th son isn't so bad after all.